a boat filled with high technology and cautious hope. They have found something down there. The question is it what they're looking for?
Deep in the South Pacific, 17,000 feet below the waves, lies a relic of war that was never meant to be seen again. The USS Hornet CV-8. When explorers finally located its watery grave, they expected a mangled wreck. What they found, however, made them question everything. On its deck sat an aircraft, its wings still neatly folded, an anti-aircraft gun still aimed at the sky. The footage was so surreal, so unbelievably preserved, that it rendered the entire crew speechless. This is the story of what they saw in the abyss. The ship that sailed into myth. You see, this wasn't just any ship. She was a legend in the making from the moment she was launched in late 1940. As a Yorktown-class aircraft carrier, she was one of the most advanced fighting machines of her time, a floating fortress weighing over 20,000 tons and stretching longer than 2 football fields. But the thing nobody tells you is just how short her life would be. In just over a year of service, the Hornet would etch its name into history with a series of daring feats that still boggle the mind. Her trial by fire was a mission so audacious, many thought it was a fantasy. In April of 1942, just months after the devastating attack on Pearl Harbor, America needed a symbol of hope. The Hornet delivered it. In an operation that seemed impossible, 16 Army B-25 bombers were loaded onto her flight deck. These were massive twin-engine planes never designed for carrier takeoff. But under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Jimmy Doolittle, they were stripped of every non-essential piece of weight, loaded with extra fuel, and pointed toward Japan. On April 18th, 800 miles from their target, the Hornet's crew achieved the unthinkable. One by one, the heavy bombers roared down the impossibly short runway and lifted into the sky, headed for Tokyo. The Doolittle raid caused minimal physical damage, but its psychological impact was monumental. It proved that the heart of the Japanese Empire was not untouchable, and it was the USS Hornet that had carried the dagger. What many overlooked is that this was just the beginning. Only 2 months later, the Hornet sailed into the pages of history yet again at the Battle of Midway. Alongside her sister carriers, the Enterprise and Yorktown, she was part of the American force that ambushed the Japanese fleet. Her dive bombers and torpedo planes, though suffering heavy losses, played a critical role in one of the most decisive naval battles ever fought. 4 of Japan's most powerful aircraft carriers were sent to the bottom of the ocean, a blow from which their navy would never fully recover. The Hornet had helped turn the tide of the entire Pacific War. She had become a feared and respected opponent, a symbol of American resolve. But in the unforgiving theater of war, legends are often short-lived. Her luck was about to run out in the brutal campaign for the Solomon Islands. By October 1942, during the Battle of the Santa Cruz Islands, the Hornet found herself in the crosshairs of a determined enemy. Japanese dive bombers and torpedo planes descended on her in relentless waves. The ship was hammered by multiple bomb and torpedo hits. Fires raged across her decks and her engines ground to a halt. To put it mildly, the damage was catastrophic. The order was given to abandon ship. 140 of her crew would never make it home. Even then, the Hornet refused to give up. American destroyers fired torpedoes into her burning hull to scuttle her, but the ghost ship defiantly stayed afloat. It wasn't until the following day that Japanese warships found the drifting carrier and finally sent her to her final resting place, 3 miles below the waves. Her incredible career lasted just 1 year and 7 days. Her story became a legend, but her grave remained one of the ocean's most guarded secrets. How they found the unfindable. For 77 years, the Pacific Ocean held the Hornet in its silent, crushing grip. Finding a single shipwreck in an ocean that covers nearly a third of the planet is like finding a needle in a continent-sized haystack. Many people were crazy about finding these legendary wrecks, but the Hornet was different. She sank in one of the deepest and most remote parts of the ocean. The pressure at those depths, over 8,000 pounds per square inch, is enough to implode most submarines like a tin can. For decades, the technology simply didn't exist to even attempt a search. The Hornet was gone, a memory preserved only in old photographs and the stories of survivors. But that all changed thanks to the vision of one man, the late Paul Allen, co-founder of Microsoft. Allen funded a state-of-the-art research vessel, the RV Petrel, with one mission: to find the lost warships of World War II and preserve their stories. The Petrel was not just a boat, it was a floating technological marvel, equipped with tools that could probe the darkest corners of the abyss. The hunt for the Hornet began not at sea but in dusty archives. The research team spent months piecing together a puzzle from history. They pored over declassified naval records, ship's logs, and action reports from 9 different U.S. warships that were present during the Hornet's final hours. Each report contained a slightly different set of coordinates for where the ship was last seen. The thing nobody tells you is that this data was a mess of contradictions. Using these decades-old logs, the team created a search box, a 1,000 square mile patch of the ocean floor where the Hornet was most likely to be. With the search area defined, the real work began. The Petrel deployed an autonomous underwater vehicle, or AUV. This advanced, torpedo-shaped robot was programmed to swim back and forth across the search box in a perfect grid pattern, a technique they called mowing the lawn. For days, the AUV scanned the seabed with its powerful sonar, sending back data that slowly painted a picture of the terrain below. The crew worked in 12-hour shifts, staring at screens, waiting for a sign, any anomaly that looked different from the surrounding mud and rock. It was exhausting, mind-numbing work. Then on its very first dive mission within the search grid, the AUV got a hit. A faint, unmistakable shape appeared on the sonar readout. It was large, man-made, and matched the dimensions of an aircraft carrier. The excitement in the control room was electric, but they had to be sure. This is where the next piece of incredible technology came into play: the remotely operated vehicle, or ROV. Unlike the autonomous AUV, the ROV is tethered to the ship and controlled by a pilot using a joystick, almost like a video game. It's equipped with powerful lights and high-definition cameras. The crew sent the ROV on a journey 3 miles straight down, a descent that took hours, aimed at the mysterious sonar contact. They were about to get the first look at the Hornet in over 7 decades, a frozen moment in history. As the ROV descended into the eternal darkness, the only light came from its own powerful beams, cutting through the black water. On the screens aboard the Petrel, the seafloor slowly materialized, a vast, empty landscape of silt. And then something emerged from the gloom. It was the wreck. The control room fell silent. Everyone was speechless. They weren't looking at a mangled pile of scrap metal. To put it mildly, they were staring at a ghost. The USS Hornet was sitting upright on the ocean floor, her hull remarkably intact. The first definitive proof came into view: a 5-inch anti-aircraft gun, its twin barrels still pointing towards the surface, as if ready to fend off an attack that had ended 77 years ago. The preservation was astonishing, but this was just the beginning of the wow factor. As the ROV glided over the hangar deck, the crew gasped. There, sitting perfectly upright as if waiting for its next assignment, was an International Harvester aircraft tug. The small tractor used to move planes around the deck was so well preserved you could still read the manufacturer's name on it. It was a surreal, haunting image, a piece of ordinary machinery in an extraordinarily hostile environment. What many overlooked was the sheer impossibility of what they were seeing. The violent sinking, the descent through 3 miles of water, and the crushing pressure should have torn these artifacts to pieces. Yet they remained. The biggest shock was yet to come. The ROV's cameras panned across the wreck and found a Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighter plane. But it wasn't a mangled heap of metal. The aircraft was sitting on its landing gear, and incredibly, its wings were still folded back in the stowed position, just as they would have been on a functioning carrier. It was a moment frozen in time, an eerie tableau from 1942 sealed in a deep-sea vault. The team was able to identify the plane's bureau number, confirming it was one of the Hornet's own. It was a direct physical link to the men who flew and fought from her decks. As the ROV continued its survey, more incredible details emerged. They found another anti-aircraft mount with its gun shield still in place. They saw the ship's bell covered in marine growth but still recognizable. And then, the ultimate confirmation. On the hull near the stern, the ROV's lights illuminated a faint but clear number painted on the steel: an 8. This was it. This was the USS Hornet CV-8. Seeing that number, a simple marking that survived decades in the abyss, was an emotional moment for everyone on board. It wasn't just a wreck anymore, it was the Hornet herself, a war hero found at last. The footage confirmed the ship's identity, but it also raised a profound question about its occupants. The human cost of war. While the technology that found the Hornet is incredible, the true heart of this story isn't made of steel and circuits. It's about the people. It's about the memories of the men who served, fought, and in some cases gave everything on her decks. When the news of the discovery broke, it reached one of the few remaining Hornet survivors, a 95-year-old veteran named Richard Nowatzki. He was just an 18-year-old gunner's mate when the ship went down. Decades later, the memories were as sharp as ever. He recalled the terrifying sound of the armor-piercing bombs as they tore through the ship's decks, plink, 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 followed by a massive explosion that shook the entire vessel. The research team showed him the footage from the ROV. As the camera panned across a remarkably preserved 5-inch gun mount, Nowatzki recognized it instantly. It was his battle station. He had stood right there during the Hornet's final fight. Staring at the screen, he was looking at a piece of his own past, resurrected from the deep. It was a profoundly emotional reunion, a bridge across time connecting a young sailor in the chaos of war with the old man he had become. Even in that heavy moment, his spirit shone through. He joked with the researchers, "If you go down to my locker, there is $40 in there. You can have it." But behind the humor lies a somber truth. The USS Hornet is more than just a historic artifact. It's a war grave. 140 sailors were lost with the ship. Their final resting place is within that cold, silent hull 3 miles beneath the waves. You see, this is why the exact coordinates of the wreck are kept secret. The site is protected by the Sunken Military Craft Act, which makes it illegal to disturb the wreck or remove any artifacts. The mission of the RV Petrel was never to salvage the Hornet, but to document and honor it. It's a place of reverence, a memorial to the bravery and sacrifice of its crew. The discovery finally brought a deep sense of peace to the families of those lost with the Hornet. For 77 long years, they lived with only the words, "lost at sea." Now they have a resting place, a point on the map where memory meets reality. The USS Hornet lies quietly in the deep, a steel tomb and a timeless monument to sacrifice. For naval historians, the wreck is more than just metal. It's a living textbook of war's brutal physics. Every dent, scorch mark, and twisted beam tells a story about the limits of human engineering and the chaos of battle. But beyond the historians and the families, the Hornet's rediscovery speaks to something universal. It reminds us that no matter how advanced our machines become, it's not the steel or the strategy that lasts, it's the people. The laughter in the mess hall, the fear on the deck, the bravery in the chaos, those are the things that time cannot sink. The Hornet, now resting silently beneath miles of ocean, has become more than a warship. It's a symbol of endurance, proof that courage and memory survive even when everything else is swallowed by the sea. Should these deep-sea war graves be left completely untouched as memorials, or should they be explored further for the sake of history? Let us know your thoughts. Like and subscribe for more.